Oh boy! It's Thursday already, guys! Oh, time for a new video. Let's get a more intimate video angle here. Is this intimate or just weird? Alright, today I got a good one for you. Many people out there wonder or are curious about making YouTube videos. Some people are making YouTube videos and they want to know if they should be doing them differently. Some people, like me, before I started making YouTube videos, just enjoy hearing about the tech that other people use to make YouTube videos. And that is why today, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about four different things that I use to make these posts, you know, as my YouTube videos. Let's just get right into them. Get over here. Easily the most important thing in video production workflow is the computer. Everything happens there. It's where all the magic happens. You could argue in live action videos like this, some of the magic happens in the camera, but not nearly to the extent that work really gets done within the computer. Let's open her up and I can show you some of the componentry inside. I'll put a full list of all of the specs maybe down in the description, but for now we'll just go over some of the most important parts here. Of course, the first thing that might strike you is the spacious layout inside here. This is a Corsair, what is this thing? No, it's not Corsair, it's a Fractal Design. Fractal Design Define S case. It's made for water cooling, that's why it's got this huge space up here. I opted to go for a Noctua NHD15 air cooler with basically three fans on it, primarily because it's really quiet. Hold on, let me turn off optical image stabilization here. Note the lack, it got a lot quieter. Well, go ahead, try to listen for the computer. Spoiler alert, there's no sound. It doesn't make any noise, and at full tilt, it just sounds like sort of wind. And what, you might ask, is this thing cooling? Beneath that is an Intel i7 4790K, quad-core 8-thread processor, and I should say I'm very happy with it. This thing actually goes up to like 4.9 gigahertz if I'd let it, but it's not entirely stable up there, so I keep it at like 4.7. Beneath that, we see my MSI GTX 970, that's my graphics card. That is where, honestly, most of the magic happens, in games and in video editing too. NVIDIA has built video encoding hardware into their latest GPUs, and this 970 is no exception. And that means that without relying on the CPU to encode video, you can have your GPU encoding video, which makes things all accelerated much faster. Everything works much smoother. Those are just the two most important things on the computer. I'll leave a description of everything else down in the description. Of course, I mean, you can read what this is, but some of the other stuff, like the RAM is just hidden in there. You can't see it at all. So you can get most of the stuff you need to get done with video production with just a regular computer, just a regular laptop even. Things that don't have graphics cards or high-powered desktop CPUs in them. You can do video production with those. The thing is, you can't do it nearly as well, and you can't run games, and the editing and encoding process is sped up a whole lot by the powerful stuff that's inside this. So long as you aren't getting the cutting edge technology, so long as you're getting good, mature technology, it's still very expensive, but worth it if you're an enthusiast like I am, but not a super enthusiast. Quickly before we move on, I should do a little overview of some of the accessories I'm using here. This Corsair K65 RGB, I actually did a full review on this, so you can watch that somewhere over here. Click the little circle thing that should be coming up right now. Great keyboard, couldn't be happier with it. Look, it can go all the colors of the rainbow. Oh, my monitor's on now. Well, I should speak about the monitor. This is an ISO FS2434 gaming monitor. It's a 1080p monitor, only 60 Hz, but it's an IPS display with very, very negligible input lag and a very fast gray-to-gray response time. Overall, I'm really, really happy with it. It was pretty expensive, but you could spend a whole bunch of money on your graphics card, but if your computer's monitor if the display that you're watching stuff from isn't up to snuff, then it doesn't matter what you've got behind it. So you gotta have, it's pretty important to have a good display. And this one, as far as 1080p 60 FPS displays go, 60 FPS programs and stuff like that, this is about as good as you can get. Then I've also got a Corsair mouse and a Corsair mouse mat. I even had Corsair RAM at one point. Corsair fanboy, I suppose. Oh, I should mention these. These are Sennheiser's Game 1 headphones. They're open-backed gaming headphones based on their, I think, 598 series headphones. They have exceptional audio quality, and because they're open-backed, you know, their soundstage is very expansive. They're very comfortable. These are these velvet ear cups and the headband thing. I forget I'm wearing these. That's the cliche phrase for headphones that you wear a long time, but I honestly do. I've also got a pretty good mic. I record, you know, most of stuff that I'm on my computer. If I'm speaking, it's through this mic. Very good headphones. I am so pleased with them. I even put a Daft Punk sticker on them. So that was a pretty fancy shot, huh? Cool depth of field going on right here. I guess it's about high time I talk about the camera I'm using to record all of this. I'm gonna have to use my phone to record this though. This is the Canon Rebel T2i that I use to record most things that aren't gameplays or other non-live action videos for the channel. It has an older and less advanced APS-C sensor inside, and it's not a very advanced DSLR in itself. It's not really made for recording videos, or it's not really that great, to be honest, but it is a very capable DSLR nonetheless. Canon's Rebel series is kind of known as a good entry-level DSLR, and I would agree with that. It's a very good DSLR for entry-level sort of work. It's certainly no Canon 5D or it's not a Hasselblad or anything like that. I should mention the lens I'm using is a Tamron 18 to 270 millimeter lens. It's pretty dark. It's not very good, but it has a, you know, wide range of. I can zoom way in, or I can have a wider angle like the one here. And this is just a little shader thing that goes on the front of it. Keep the sun glare from hitting the actual lens. Ultimately, I could probably get by recording things that I would record on this camera with just my phone, and probably anybody could do that too. But having this is quite a boon, and you can't do some things with a phone. You just can't do them. Like, you can't really get a shot like this on a phone's camera. You probably could. I'm probably just fibbing, but you know, having a big chunky camera is kind of nice every once in a while. Well, these next two things I'm going to talk about aren't actually as important as those last two ones, the camera and the computer, but they do help me quite a bit, and I think they would help anybody quite a bit. And the first one is this guy. You've definitely seen this guy if you watched some previous videos. This is my trusty rusty Dell XPS 13 laptop. Without getting a MacBook, this laptop is basically one of the best laptops you can buy. It's pretty much the best Windows laptop you can buy, excluding perhaps the Microsoft Surface laptops that Microsoft makes, because they're made for Windows. It's essentially just a MacBook that just runs Windows. It's not powerful, it's not actually fancy, it's not even super expensive, at least compared to a MacBook or something. Macs always cost like $1,000 or more. This didn't even. But it's still very useful for specific things with making videos. I can take it outside and do those little fancy schmancy Subscriber of the Month videos outdoors with this thing. I could of course use my phone, but it's much cooler to be using this. I also use it as a second screen when I'm live streaming. I could just get a second monitor for my computer, but there is something to be said for the redundancy of having your second screen be a second computer. And you might think that if you have a computer or if you have a laptop, you don't need the other one. But it's not really true, especially if you're in school. You absolutely need a laptop these days. That's why I got this in the end. So I should say, today, it's not really something that I need per se, but it is something I'm very grateful to have, and it's very useful. Also, before I had this little doohickey, this little card reader thing that via USB for my computer, I had used the SD card reader on this thing. Shout out to Apple for removing their SD card readers from the latest MacBook Pros. What are you doing, Apple? First the headphone jack, now the SD card reader, next they're just gonna remove all the ports. Anyway, on to the final and, well, I said most important for the computer, but this one is, when you get down to it, it's one of the most important things in the whole video production process. So the last bit of gear is actually a bit of software. You'll forgive me for stretching the definition of gear, I suppose. Specifically, that software is Adobe Premiere, well, more generally, Adobe Creative Cloud. There are other editing programs, but there are no other editing programs. The upside of using Adobe Creative Cloud as your editing suite, aside from it being expensive, and you have to swallow that cost if you want to use it, the upside is, as you're making videos, as you're learning the craft of using the suite of apps, Premiere, Audition, Photoshop, After Effects, Illustrator, as you're learning those, you're learning valuable skills, honestly. Fun fact, everyone's favorite movie this year from way earlier in the year, Deadpool, that was edited in Adobe Premiere, just like this old Subscriber of the Month video. Of course, probably much more complicated. In fact, not only was that the upload video. So yeah, I use Premiere and I use After Effects and I use Photoshop. Sometimes I use Illustrator. Premiere is the real MVP though, amongst the apps. Photoshop's probably the best known, but Premiere is, well, they go hand in hand. I use Photoshop all the time to make thumbnails. See, check out this guy, Photoshop. Can't go wrong with Photoshop. Again, there are free or even perhaps just less expensive versions of all of these apps that probably do everything that they do, but there's something to be said for using mainstream hardware and software. There's something to be said for using what everyone else is using, and especially what industry people are using. Like I said, Deadpool, edited on Premiere. Professionals all over the globe use Photoshop too. If I'm talking about software, I should quickly mention OBS. I'd be remiss to not mention OBS, honestly. OBS, Open Broadcaster Software, is a little application that lets you record things on your computer and stream to things like YouTube and Twitch and other sites. It's pretty damn powerful. In fact, it can use the hardware media encoder in your graphics card so that you don't have to strain your CPU. And you can actually record things, and you can set up slides that show while live streaming and whatnot. I've got my wait for it and thanks for watching slides set up, OBS is free, and it's honestly pretty much the best streaming software I know of. Well, I said I'd show you 4 things, and I've shown you maybe 4.5. So there we go. You got a little extra. That's what I used to make all this spaghetti. I hope that was helpful for you. I hope maybe you learned something. Maybe you at least were entertained. I'm always interested in knowing what other people are using to make videos. So I don't know, if you have your own little gear set up that you use, maybe not even make YouTube videos, just to like entertain yourself at home. Leave a comment, say what you use. Or explain to me why I shouldn't be using a 970, I should be using a 1070, or why the ISO FS whatever this thing is a terrible monitor, or this keyboard is also any of that. Just leave it in the comments. I'm desperate for comments. Is this an intimate angle?
The bagel.
Lots of spaghetti, 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 lots